science knowledge only adds to the excitement, the mystery, and the awe of a flower.
Evidence is evidence. It's public, everybody can look at the evidence and assess it, and eventually, if there's enough evidence, come to the same conclusion.
Cockatoos with attitude. Cockatude. Hi, and welcome to Cockatude, Cockatoos with Attitude, episode 24. Awaken Your Inner Parrot. Yeah, we're going to talk about why we would want to awaken our inner parrot and what that might actually mean. And it may just sound like a catchphrase, but actually there's a lot of things these guys have that we don't normally use, or we don't use as well as they do. So we're going to talk about those, and then some of the differences too, the things that we can use that they normally don't use as tools to help us with living with these guys. But today we have with us Babaloo, and up here is Roman. Right, Roman? Yes, Roman. Over here is Cause. Cause, you want to take a bow? She goes, no, I'm going to bury myself here. And Peaches. And Simone, we'll have her out in a little while, but we need to get things settled down first because she has a tendency to get a little wild these days. Babaloo, come on back over here, sweetheart. Now you're not going to climb up the tripods. Good boy. Good boy. And we got Peaches. And then Chloe and Snowball, the tag team up there. And then we have, way up there on the top of his toy, is Salamander. We have Lorelei sitting next to lovely Sugar. Sugar had a little problem this week. She got her wing caught in a cage. And I posted on Facebook about how I dealt with that. Also, we're going to take a few breaks today, so you'll see some shifts as far as birds will be in one place and then they'll be somewhere else. That's because it's 102 degrees outside, and this room needs to have the air conditioner running for at least 15 minutes every hour, or we're just going to pant ourselves to death, aren't we, Bob? Aren't we, Bob? Babaloo. So, let's get started. So, why would you want to awaken your inner parrot? Well, for one thing, they have much better vision than we do. They tend to see things in ways we don't. We have a single fovea in our eye that gives us a small range of vision. So, we tend to think we're seeing all of this out in front of us, but we're not. And we don't even actually see what's directly in front of us that well because we have the optical nerve coming through our retina that leaves a blind spot. So these guys have a 270 degree vision, which makes it so that they pretty much see all the things going on. And they may even have a better time sense than we do. Hi, Peaches. Are you singing for us, baby girl? Hello, baby. How you doing? They probably have a better time sense than us because if you see the way they fly and the way they maneuver around things, I don't think that we, moving quite that fast, could do what they do. So they may have a better time sense. That's something would be nice if we could awaken, but I don't think that we can do that. And recent research done at the Gotham Center, which is in Europe, has shown that they're even aware of things that aren't there. So if you were to play the old shell game with them, put 3 shells down and put something under one of the shells, something they want, like with her it would be a pine nut or a piece of papaya, and you move those shells around where they're watching, they're going to know where that treat is. They're going to know it where we wouldn't. They're just able to follow things better, and that even includes they did in the tests they did on these birds. They actually took something where they had something behind it and they put it into they had like little huts, these little containers, and they would move things in and then move them out. So, and then they would take things out of them behind these little screens they had. The birds still figured it out. So They're constantly examining their environment to see what changes are happening, and they're making inferences about what's going on, and they're terribly good at it. And that's something we would like to emulate, and there's ways we can do that, and we'll get into that. Now, as far as their awareness, their ability to be aware of their environment, there's a good story about that. I was talking to the director of adoptions at the Humane Society in San Diego, and I had an earpiece in. I was in the kitchen, and I knew Lorelei was flying around out in the living room, that's the main bird room. So I came walking out, making sure that this side of my face was facing. There you go, Chloe. Careful now. You know the glass is there, so be careful. It's not funny. It's not. I don't think it's funny. So I walked out making sure there's no way she would know that I had this earpiece on. And I had been in the kitchen with the door closed, so just not possible, right? So I sit down. We used to have a socialization chair in the main bird room. So I sit down, and several birds come over, and they're sitting on me. And Lorelei's way up here, and I think what tipped her off was, Chloe, are you okay? Just getting her exercise. You think that's funny? You do? Woof woof. Woof woof. Woof woof. What? What, Bob? It is ignorance of Bob's nature that turned Babaloo into a living gargoyle. Bob's would-be parents made a hasty choice and found themselves in living hell, torn between guilt and frustration. I have seen the joy in Babaloo's eyes now that he has a new life with me as his companion. To see Babaloo love and trust again is worth the effort of a lifetime. But, once again, Bob is heading toward the pain of separation. My heart nearly broke the day I discovered that he was heading toward a cloacal prolapse, that his life will be cut short. To find love and acceptance and then have it stolen away from you by failing health is too much to bear. We can slow the progress of his failing health, but we can't stop it. He will need several surgeries, and eventually Babaloo will die. We want to give him the best possible life until that day. His surgeries will become progressively more expensive over time. Won't you please lend Babaloo a hand and donate to his medical fund today? Our donation button is on our webpage at www.chloesanctuary.org. Just be sure to say, "For Bob," in the notes when you donate. So I sit down and I'm talking into midair. I think that was my mistake because they don't miss much. And Lorelei flew down and grabbed the bridge of my glasses in mid-flight, which would be kind of like reaching out while a car was flying by at 30 miles an hour, reaching out and grabbing a piece of fruit off a tree. I mean, it was amazing. She took my glasses and she threw them on the floor. Then she flew up onto another cage. So I reached down to grab my glasses, and she flew down and took my earpiece, which is what she loves. She loves earpieces. She likes buttons, which is why the shirt doesn't have a button on it. I got brave recently and bought some work shirts from my computer business, which had their button down. So how long they last, who knows? She's already shown an interest, but I haven't given her the opportunity yet. So, right, Peaches? Aw, you feeling good? Yeah. Little Peach has lost weight for a couple of days, but she's picking it back up today, aren't you? She's picked up another 22 grams, so that's a good girl. So they're aware of their environment, and they're keeping track of it. And we can learn to keep track of our environment, even if we can't necessarily keep track of it as well as they can. We can learn to observe things in different ways, and They also appear to see things in context. So if I go into the kitchen and it's getting towards evening, so you can tell the light in the room's coming down from the sun, and I close the door and I start moving around in there. If I go and do something that doesn't have to do with making their evening medicine, getting it sorted out, and Roman gets his with a little bit of peanut butter, so tiny bit of peanut butter with his medicine mixed into it. So I can piddle around in there and do whatever, and Roman won't say a word. But the second I get into that refrigerator, now remember, there's a door between us. I get into that refrigerator and I take a couple of small plates out, and I get ready to divvy out the peanut butter. There's like 3 sticks at night that I do. Lorelei gets one, and Snowball gets one. I had to look at you before I remember your name, silly. So anyway, if I do that and I start mixing the medicine into the peanut butter, Roman will start saying, "I love you, I love you, I love you, won't you, Roman?" That's what he'll say. Now, how he knows that, somehow there's something that goes on in context that he gets, but he doesn't say it when I'm not mixing it. And unless they have incredible hearing, and I haven't read that, it's possible their hearing is good. I know that they can shut down the loudness of their own voices. It might be kind of like a bat, but I haven't read the research to corroborate that. Where bats, when they release a sound, we're not talking about all of them, some of them have different methods of dealing with it, but they produce a sound and their ears shut off while they're making the sound, and then they turn back on. Now, they have something to actually close off their hearing during those times. And they may have something similar because we know how loud they are. and yet they may have better hearing than we imagine. I can't imagine what other clues he could have, but again, it's context. In certain circumstances, doors closed, certain time of day, and then what other factors actually add into it, he knows. And he'll start doing it. He never misses a beat. He always knows. So they're good at context, and that's something we can learn to do. And they also understand how they seem to know how to manipulate us. If we're willing caretakers and we're interested in their lives, they find ways to make us do things. And this one here, he's got his ways. Climbing up on my arm right now, he wants me to look at him and give him a little attention. And this I know from the past, so he's not normally a huggy bird, but there's times where he wants the attention and he wants to know that you're interested in him. So he'll climb up on my arm. Other times he'll just tap me on the arm. Sometimes when he's tapping me on the arm, I have to restrain him a little bit, kind of get him onto something else because it's that mating signal. But other times he's just trying to get my attention. He wants to know I'm there. Right, Bob? Yeah? If you notice how his head moves quickly too, the way he jerks his head around, it scares the heck out of people. They can't take it. He just moves so fast that he scares them. But it's like with that quick motion he did towards my finger, he wasn't doing anything. He was just moving around. Weren't you, Bob? You wasn't even thinking about biting me, were you? So the first thing we have to start doing is being mindful of the environment, to pay attention to even the small things. They do. Now with Chloe, there was a day, I'd had her for maybe 6 months, when I was making some biscuits in the morning. So I put out a can of Rumsford baking powder, and she was doing something else. But as soon as she turned around and saw that can of baking powder, she gave her alarm call. Well, I had put a lot of things out, flour and spices and things that I was using, and I was digging stuff out of the refrigerator. So when she started giving the alarm call, which is repetitive, like every 2 seconds, so it took a while. I just started putting things up. Put this up, put this up, put this up, put this up. The second I put away the Rumsford, quiet. Put it back out. So, being wiped off again. Just a second here. Let me wipe that off. And he's heading towards that cloacal prolapse, and he gets wet sometimes. He gets cleaned up every day, but he still gets wet. There you go, Bob. We'll get you cleaned up a little while, okay? Okay. All right. Hi, sweetie. Yeah, I know. You don't like the other birds around, so. So, I've often had people say that, and the one that I think I've mentioned this before, but I had a lady tell me, well, I haven't changed anything. Well, that's not possible. I mean, we change things all the time. We change our clothes, we change our shoes, we change the way we do things. I mean, who knows, maybe you sat out some orange juice and left the container out. Anything, it could be any strange thing that could, little thing that could set something like that off. And she dyed her hair, so of course I said, well, last time I saw you, you weren't a redhead. So, and that's, when she thought back, that was about the time what she called aggressive behavior started. And it was more like in the wild, if a bird appears sick, the flock will drive it away. Even the mate will do that because it's, obviously if a bird is sick, that could affect the whole flock. So becoming observant, the first thing you can start doing is just actually kind of paying attention to the little details. Did I have that perch in the same spot yesterday? And by same spot, I'm talking pretty close to the same spot. If it's a foot away from where you had it, it's not in the same spot. Something they know. And if they didn't, they'd be flying into things in the wild that they shouldn't be flying into. They should be aware of their environment and know where things are. And if things are moving, they should know. And that includes their friends in the sky when they're flying together. So. And you need to look at things in context too. Are you alone in the house? Does it happen? Does a certain kind of thing happen when someone else comes home? So when your mate comes home, or when you have a friend over, or one of your children, or somebody like that, is that the time that you normally see certain behaviors? And on top of that, do those behaviors happen in the morning, the afternoon, the evening, the night? Are they time specific? You've got to become alert to all these different possibilities. And it's good to start journaling some of this. You see a certain behavior and try to figure out the different things in the environment that could have sparked it. Some of them are kind of obvious, like the day that I have a lot of birds to feed. So there was a day that I hadn't put Cecil's food in his cage yet, and I'd go around and check, and I would have caught it. But I hear this clank, and I look over, and I have to clamp his bowls in his cage, or he throws his food all over the place. And he's just playing, but that's from what I can tell, but that's what he does. So the clank was one of the clamps used to hold down the bowl. He slammed it against the cage and let it drop. And then he took the other one and threw it outside the cage. So I'm looking, and there's a clamp on the ground. I'm going, clamp, uh-oh, no food in his cage. So that was his way of alerting me that his food wasn't in there. I can't be 100% sure that's what he was doing, but it sure looked like it. So context is really important. Another example of context is with Bob. He'll sometimes, at night, he'll scream a little bit. And screaming is not squawking. It's repeating the same squawk over and over again. And with Bob, part of the problem with it is that he makes the same squawk when he's upset that he does for an alarm call, at least to my ears. It's possible that if I actually recorded it and looked at the waveform, they'd be different. But with my hearing, after being around these birds for this long, who knows? Maybe he is making a different call. But if I look over at him, and here's the context thing again, if I look over at him and he's looking at me, then it's probably an issue about me, or maybe I didn't put something in his cage he expected. Maybe he saw me with the corn, and he gets a little bit of corn on the cob on occasion. I have to be careful about what I feed him, but so maybe he saw me with the corn before and hadn't got it to him yet. That may be it. It may just be attention that he wants, but if he's looking outside and his eyes are staring in a particular direction, either there's something out there right now that's causing a problem that he's alarmed about, or something was out there. I've seen coyotes when he called that. There was a heron outside one day when he was making that sound. So I don't automatically assume, oh, he just wants attention. You have to look and see in context, what's he doing? Right, Peaches? If Peach's eyes are oval, for example, sometimes that can be that she's in pain because of her fused vertebrae in her neck. At other times, it may simply be that she's tired. Sometimes it may be because she's not happy another bird is close to her. And again, looking at her total body language, I can generally tell that. And that's something you can learn over time. It does help. Barbara Heinrich has a good video that shows you some of their body language. Examples are if you see a bird with the feathers up strictly behind its neck, nowhere else, just sticking up behind its neck, that bird is generally in a heightened state where it might become aggressive, or it's fearful, or there's something going on. But it's not generally a state where you want to bother a bird. You can try to calm them down, but you don't want to bother a bird who's got those feathers on the back of their neck. So, again, in context, you look at the whole thing. Right now, I can kind of tell she's getting a little too happy here. She's quite possibly going to start vibrating if I pet her, so I've got to slow down. She's pressing up against me. It's like she's become a little heavier, and that can be an indication she's going to start exhibiting some mating behavior. And I don't want to stimulate that too much. It doesn't look like that has anything at all to do with cloacal prolapse, even though that seems to be the idea running through the internet. You'll see a lot of people say that there's some kind of causal link, but we certainly haven't seen that at all. It's more likely it's diet and lack of exercise. But we will cover some topics to help with that. And Lorelei, after the incident where she saw a hawk, and I didn't realize that there was that problem, that there was a hawk there. When she saw that hawk, and I tried to put her in her cage, she got scared, and it took quite a bit of time to get that trust back in her. Obviously, if there was a monster coming towards you and somebody shoving you towards the monster, you're going to have an issue. So sometimes when I go to get her, she'll fly away from me, and I have to look at context as to whether she's looking afraid, or she's fearing that I might again be doing something like when I put her in the cage, at which point she'll usually be looking away when I walk up to her. In other cases, she'll just stare down at me like, what are you doing? And she's not looking away like she's going to fly away, but she's looking down. And that may indicate that maybe my voice was too loud. She doesn't like my voice to be too loud. In other cases, it may simply be that, like coming back here, that she knows Cause came back here. She doesn't want to be in a room where Cause is. Yeah? Are you sure? So sometimes she'll fly away just because of that. Now today she wanted to come back here, so it was actually Cecil who didn't want to come out of his cage. And she did though. She wanted to come out, so I put my arm up, she hopped right on, and then I put her on my shoulder, and she followed me all the way in here. So, and it's not just what's happening now. You have to. Are we leaking over here, Bob? We are. Come here, boy. Let me clean you up. It's all right. Let Daddy clean you up. Poor boy. I know. Daddy's always doing that to you. But you're leaking a little bit. It is ignorance of Bob's nature
that turned Babaloo into a living gargoyle. Bob's would-be parents made a hasty choice and found themselves in living hell, torn between guilt and frustration. I have seen the joy in Babaloo's eyes now that he has a new life with me as his companion. To see Babaloo love and trust again is worth the effort of a lifetime. But, once again, Bob is heading toward the pain of separation. My heart nearly broke the day I discovered that he was heading toward a cloacal prolapse, that his life will be cut short. To find love and acceptance and then have it stolen away from you by failing health is too much to bear. We can slow the progress of his failing health, but we can't stop it. He will need several surgeries, and eventually Babaloo will die. We want to give him the best possible life until that day. His surgeries will become progressively more expensive over time. Won't you please lend Babaloo a hand and donate to his medical fund today? Our donation button is on our webpage at www.chloesanctuary.org. Just be sure to say, "For Bob," in the notes when you donate.
Sadly, most people, from what Dr. Jenkins said, when they have a bird that starts to have this problem, they have them put down long before they need to be. You don't need to put them down until their insides are hanging out and they're uncomfortable, and you can tell that they're not enjoying life. Even if you actually have the full prolapse, they can still lead a relatively normal life until they get an infection. So. Well, it's not just what's happening today, but you contrast it with yesterday's situation. So if for many people they have to, there you go, Chloe, nice flight. They have weekends. I don't have something like that, but what, Bob? What, sweetie? So they do different things on weekends than they do during weekdays. There are people who they take off on vacation and then they come back, and there are a lot of different situations that change, and those can affect how your bird's going to. Chloe, are you having fun? I don't really want you over there, Chloe. Chloe, come here, Chloe. Come on, Chloe. Chloe. Come on, Chloe. 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 I don't think she can get down from there. We're gonna have to go get her. I'm gonna go get Chloe. Come here, Chloe. What are you doing? Come on, Chloe. Come on. No, leave her alone. Leave her alone. Bob, don't you threaten Chloe. That's my Chloe. Leave her alone. Whoa, 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 whoa. Okay, Scoot, you always get underneath me. So it's important to contrast what happened yesterday with what's happening today, and try to see if there's something that's changed, and also over the long term. If normally a bird's been getting out for 2 hours a day, and suddenly, or let's say over the last month or two, you've had a lot of things on your plate, and now they're only getting out an hour, you may not notice that trend because it happens slowly. Maybe it was 2 hours for a while, then it became 2 hours, and an hour and 50 minutes, then it worked to an hour and a half, and it eventually got down to an hour because of what was going on in your life. That can affect them, and you can be seeing behaviors because of it. So you need to be able to kind of backtrack, and it doesn't hurt to keep a journal. If you use Mac products, probably Day One is a good journal for that. It's what I use. And you look at their environment and their life in general. Is something been added? Has something been taken away? Do they normally get out of the house and go and visit places for a couple of days of the week, and for the last couple of weeks that hasn't been happening? Or even if you normally do it twice a week and you've only done it once, they have a good sense of time, and they seem to, from what we can tell from fMRIs done down in San Diego, it appears that they remember things with incredible detail. So, like who did what to them when and how it felt. So, what may seem like a minor thing to you or something you would just throw under the bus, it's not necessarily something like that for them. So, to observe, what tools can we start using that can help us to pick up their ability to catch detail? Well, the number one is that recent development of civilization called science. And you have to remember, most people don't think of it this way, but science is not a noun, it's a verb. It's something you do, it's not a thing. When you read, like if I'm reading an abstract about recent research on parrot behavior, I am reading the products of the scientific method, a methodology that helps you to get rid of things that your own cognitive bias. We tend to be biased. If you'd grown up with the idea that the sun rises over the horizon in the morning and sets at night, the sun doesn't do that. The earth turns, right? But your cognitive bias, if that's what you've been raised to think, or that's the way you normally think, then it's going to be hard to change that. And this is something we can learn the tools to approach things from a scientific method. And it doesn't mean that you have to put on a lab coat and start acting like Dr. Frankenstein. What you need to do is to develop some tools. Now, Carl Sagan came up with something he called the baloney detection kit. And these are things that you can use to help you determine whether what you're learning about birds is true or not. Because you'll hear a lot of things on the internet that are unsubstantiated, that are just circulating around, and people just assume they're true. And we tend to follow groups. We tend to just follow along with the group. And you don't want to do that. It doesn't matter whether you've got, you shouldn't have right-wing ideas and left-wing ideas about science. You should just have science. The scientific method, and you should have people who are experts in their field, who've done research, who've been reviewed by their peers. They call that peer review. And when you look at these things, when you look at the information that's coming out of these kind of studies, you're finding out some real truth about the universe. So the first thing you need to do is to start using Carl Sagan's baloney detection kit. And I have it written down here. Okay, this is from Carl Sagan's baloney detection kit. And you should know Carl Sagan, but he was an astrophysicist that he was the one that did the series, the PBS series called Cosmos. And recently they did an update on that, and Neil Tyson deGrasse did that, and that's another tremendous set of scientific inquiry for us to pay attention to. But the first item on his detection kit: seek independent confirmation of alleged facts. Someone says, I keep my parrot off my shoulder because I don't want my parrot to become dominant. I don't want my parrot to be the alpha male controlling my life. There is no dominance in parrots.
Inspector Trousseau, the sulfur-crested sleuth.
I never let Tristan on my shoulder, man. He's an alpha male. Ow!
Why is he biting your foot then? There is no dominance.
If you go out and start searching the scientific information about parrots, the research that's actually been done, you'll see that there is no dominance. And the statement of one individual or even a group of individuals who don't have any expertise in the field, who say that parrots have dominance, doesn't hold any water. So you need to, like Carl Sagan said, you need to seek independent confirmation of alleged facts. So confirmation would not be, Joe Blow says parrots have dominance, and then Jill Smith over here says that. But you go and look at some behaviorists who studied birds and parrots, and from what they have to say, a good example, for most basic confirmation, you can go to the Manual of Parrot Behavior. That book's a compendium of a lot of scientific information that will help you make these determinations, and it'll be a good launching point for you to actually go out and learn more and get confirmation about what you're reading there too. You shouldn't never stick to one single source, right? Next in his list is in science there are no authorities. At most there are experts. The reason he says that there are experts and no authorities is authority is somebody you're going to believe on everything they say. An expert, you can believe the facts they present if they're corroborated by the rest of their peer group, okay? If you've got somebody who's a behaviorist who's studying, let's say, cockatoo behavior, if that behavior has been corroborated, hey, stop that. If you have a behaviorist who's been studying cockatoos and her information that she presents seems a little controversial, and you go out and study what her peers are saying, and the ones who've reviewed her study say that it's valid, that her methodology was valid and the information is therefore valid, then that's good. If there's any questions, then you need to study a little deeper. And especially when you're dealing with new information, that's important to do. Don't accept things just on authority. You consider what the experts have to say, and if the majority of experts in the field agree on a particular point, let's say 80 or 90% of them are on that, then you can pretty much count that to be tentatively true and something you can work with. I'm going to take an air conditioner break because it's getting awfully hot in here.
We hope you will consider supporting us on Patreon today. This is how it works. We produce up to 2 videos a month. As a patron, you pledge to give us a donation, whatever you feel is right and meets your budget. Patreon gives us your gift monthly. You can easily set a limit on how much you donate a month. You can change the amount of your pledge at any time. Your gift will allow us to continue bringing you entertaining and informative videos. Patreon.com/Chloe Sanctuary. We look forward to your participation in Cockatude.
Come up with a variety of competing hypotheses explaining a given outcome. So, like with Bob, is he screaming because he wants something in his cage, because he wants attention? Is there something outside that's got his attention that he's giving the alarm call for? Look at as many different possibilities as you can. The broader your set of possibilities, the better the chances they're going to actually find an answer that's closer to the truth. Considering many different explanations will lower the risk of confirmation bias. And confirmation bias, I'm going to give you the definition of that too. I'm quoting this from the Rational Wiki. Confirmation bias is the tendency to search for or interpret information in a way that confirms one's preconceptions. So confirming one's preconceptions, in other words, you think that something is a certain way, so you're going to look for proof of that. So you'll hear someone say that, well, I know that birds are dominant because when my bird's on my shoulder, it bites my ear. Okay, does it bite your foot? Does it bite anything else? And the odds are it's biting in a lot of other situations, but because it bites you when it's up on your shoulder and you're expecting, or Chloe bird, and you're expecting that bite, and the second it happens, you say, "Oh, the bird bit me because of dominance," and that's confirmation bias. So, if you're looking for a variety of possibilities, then you're not going to be overwhelmed by your own confirmation bias. Don't get too attached to your own ideas, lest you get reluctant to reject them, even in the face of evidence to the contrary. And a good example of that is that and a good way to test yourself is, what would it take for me to change my mind? And if you can't think of something that would let you change your mind about something, then quite possibly you have confirmation bias. That's a good example, someone who doesn't think that humans are having any effect on climate. If you ask them or yourself that question, what would it take for me to believe that humans are actually affecting climate change? And if you can't think of anything, then you have a confirmation bias problem. Because you have to be able to come up with something that would let you change your mind. Otherwise, you're stuck, okay? You get your mind in a rut, and it becomes a habitual way of thinking. And if you do that with these birds, it could be a problem, because they're not like us, and they don't think like us, and they don't act like us. So, right, Bob? Do you agree? Peaches, no, don't climb. No, you're not getting down on the floor, because if you get on the floor, you chew on the microphone stand, and then all we hear is Peaches chewing. That's right. And then I have to use a microphone off one of the iPhones, and that's good. Right, Peach? Okay. Quantify whenever possible.
When you quantify something, you reduce it to numbers. For example, 9 out of 10 birds respond positively to a particular drug to stop feather destructive behavior. Instead of saying most birds respond or birds respond, here you're actually looking at figures. And you can compare figures from more than one study this way. It's easier to see relationships in numbers than it is in vague concepts.
Every step in an argument must be logically sound. A single weak link can doom the entire chain. It's like if A is true, then B is true. If B is true, then C is true. And C is true, then D is true. So if A is true, then D will be true, because all of those are true down the line, right? But if it happens to be that C is not true and you've mistaken the idea, then the whole thing falls apart. So you got to make sure, it's important to verify the truth of every step in your thinking. And there's a lot of people out there, a lot of experts that have written a ton of material that we can look at and help us make those proper decisions. Help us actually choose the correct thing instead of the incorrect thing. A good example is like with Chloe and she recently had what a lot of people would call diarrhea because they don't know any better. She had excess urine in her poop. And because I've studied that and I knew about a feature of their bodies that we don't have, which is if their bodies become stressed, they can actually bypass their liver and send the urine directly to their kidneys. Well, it's not good for them, but it keeps them alive while their body's fighting something. So what that will do is it will give you a whole it will give you extra urine in their poop. And if you see all of a sudden, you see a massive amount of urine, talking maybe 3 or 4 times the amount of urine that you would normally see, then that is not diarrhea. Diarrhea would be when the feces, those little tubular parts, the solids, if those come out like mush and they don't hold form, that's diarrhea. So having the basic knowledge and then being able to analyze it and look at the poop and say, what's wrong with this picture? And the more experience you have looking at poop, the better off you're going to be because you've quantified that information. When the evidence is inconclusive, use Occam's razor to discriminate between hypotheses. Okay, hypotheses, they're just like guesses. This is my guess based on what information I have. Occam's razor, I'll read what it is, and again, this is from the Rational Wiki. The principle states that one should never make more assumptions or assume more causes than the minimum necessary to solve a problem or find a cause for things. So you want to get down to the nitty-gritty. This is the minimum number of things necessary for this to happen. Okay? As with her poop, all you really need to know, and it's almost 100% pointer, is that there's a ton of extra urine and the renal shunt is functioning in their body and they're not processing through their liver. Took her down, got the tests, she got an antibiotic specifically targeting her liver because that's where the problem was. So again, you're narrowing things down. And I took all the other possibilities out. Nothing had changed in her diet. Her food was, the same. She seemed to be eating normally. All the other things were there. The only thing that looked like it could be pointing to a problem was that urine, and the cause for that would be the failure of the liver to be in the cycle, in the urine cycle. So Occam's razor is important because there are a lot of things. You'll hear a lot of people will say, well, they pick their feathers because, and they'll fill it in with a bunch of different things. Well, they're upset. They're this, that. Their skin feels itchy. They have metal in their system, which you'll find that most vets in the know now don't test for that. Dr. Young of the Discovery Valley Animal Hospital in San Diego, who used to work for the Wild Animal Park, or the San Diego Zoological Society, said that the only time they'd ever found any metals that had caused a problem like that in a bird at the zoo was when they had actually ingested a piece of metal and it could be seen in an x-ray. Now that could be different if you had a bird that was eating the old style coatings on some of the cages that did have lead or zinc in them. That's a possibility, but not likely. Not too many birds will do that. I know one who would. This one would. And I have to put a towel over her spot in the morning where she sits on top of the tray or she'll try to eat the paint. Won't you, girl? But that's rare. So most vets who are in the know now won't be testing for that. And it takes a lot of blood to test for that. It's unsafe to do it on smaller birds. And it could be threatening on a bird that's already sick to do it on a larger bird. So unless you're better off to do an x-ray and make sure there's nothing they've ingested. If that shows up clear, you probably, and I'm not a vet, so you'd have to talk to your vet about this. But probably the best bet is just to make sure they don't have a physical object in their body and they're not eating the coating off their cages. Pay attention to falsifiability. Science does not concern itself with unfalsifiable propositions. So if there's no way you can disprove your conclusion, like with Chloe, I took her to the vet and the blood test came back and they showed levels that indicated a problem with the liver. If the test had come back negative, that would have falsified my premise, which was that she had her renal shunt functioning and she was not processing through her liver. So again, that's falsifiable. You have to be able to disprove your conclusion along with proving it. So part of science, when they go through and they try to prove something, is they're actually looking at ways to prove it, and at the same time, how can it be disproved? If I can prove it this way, is there some way I can show that it's not true. And they'll work both ends of that. Air conditioning time again. Very hot in here. Whew. So, increasing our inner parrot awareness has a lot to do with becoming more observant, and we can use the scientific method to help us become more observant. And I want to cover just a couple of effects that you're quite familiar with. They could call this the Facebook effect, but actually it's the bandwagon effect. And what that is, it's a form of cognitive bias where, because everybody else believes parrots have dominance, therefore that must be true. I remember someone once saying to me that capitalism, this is maybe 20 years ago, saying that capitalism was more people were involved in capitalism than any other form of economics. And I just kind of laughed and I said, well, there's more people in China than there are anywhere else, and that's not a capitalist country. So you'll often hear people say, well, everybody says, that doesn't mean anything. That's the bandwagon effect. My group says, or everybody says, or, well, most people believe. It doesn't matter what most people believe. What matters is the truth, and that actually means, what do the experts have to say? And then, can you confirm it some way in your own life? I mean, I do a lot of behavior with these guys, and right now I have Simone out, and he's down here hissing and chattering because he doesn't want her out. I learned certain things about behavior and studied these intensely, and I continue to learn, and then I apply it and see if it works in a face-to-face environment. And if for some reason it looks like something I've learned isn't working, then I go back to see if I've got it right. Did I learn this correctly? So again, that bandwagon effect where everybody says, or this group I'm in says, there are groups on Facebook that specifically deal with parrot nutrition. But, I had to think it out for myself, and I put pellets in their mash because I want to make sure that the bases they need are covered. And just saying that by giving them spinach or giving them a certain amount of greens and this, that it'll balance it out. Well, I'd rather go with the experts who put together good pellets like Rowdy Bush or Harrison's. Roman and Bob were both considered mean birds, and I don't really believe in mean birds. There are birds who are psychotic, there are birds who are simply withdrawn and autistic, functionally autistic, but as far as meanness, it doesn't seem to be in the species, any parrot species that I know. So going on the basis that there were no mean birds, I dug down and found the Babaloo who's really the Babaloo, and I found the Roman who's really the Roman. You want to be like a prey animal, looking to see what's in the environment at all times. You want to look back on what just happened and decide whether that's something that needs to be dealt with in the future or to be avoided in the future. You want to be aware of your environment. In the wild, they learn about their environment from their parents, their siblings, and the flock. So you want to learn all you can about their health and their behavior from experts in the field. And last, you want to see like a parrot. You want to look at things as they are, be aware of them as they are right now, and fight your human tendency to distort the facts. Boy, that's a tough fight for me. But it is for all of us. It's a fight well worth doing though, because you can end up with a room full of birds that actually get along together. Not all the time, and you have to work on it, but you can make it happen. And to differ from parrots in that one special way, which is to look to that institution we call science, remember that it's a verb, it's an activity, And the results from science can help you to see things you might never have seen, and make you more aware of what it's like to be a parrot. A cockatoo? A cockatoo. Peaches. Peaches? You want to say goodbye to people, Peaches? You want to say goodbye to people, Peaches? Oh, Peaches! Thank you for viewing, and we'll see you next time on Cockatude. Cockatoos with attitude.
We welcome your feedback on our videos. We look forward to your insights, tips, questions, stories, and pictures. You can email us at cockatude@chloesanctuary.org, reach us on Twitter @ChloeSanctuary, and join with us on our Facebook Chloe Sanctuary page.
Science knowledge only adds to the excitement, the mystery, and the awe of a flower.